Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we have the latest from the live radar. From the latest UKV, have the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. It's fairly cold over the next few days as we do drag in briefly some northerly or northeasterly winds, frosts and maybe a few wintry showers around over the next few days. Later on in the week, it will be becoming more westerly based, and that will mean temperatures will start to rise once again, perhaps up towards the double digits, and we'll see a return of pretty widespread precipitation, looking pretty relentless to end November. As we head into early December, it does look like we are going to see a fairly unsettled and stormy start, maybe even exceptionally unsettled, as we do see a big lobe of tropospheric polar vortex heading across Canada and Greenland. Now, it's going to cause very cold conditions across parts of Canada and the United States, but what it's really going to do for us is fuel the jet stream and bring some really deep low pressure systems across in the first kind of 10 days of December. Beyond that, we still have some blocking signals as we head into the middle of the month, but I must stress the next kind of 10 to 14 days, it is looking very westerly indeed. We continue to see some hints in the longer term of pressure rising towards our north and our northeast, but not got any runs like the GFS yesterday, which was very progressive with a proper full-blown easterly wind. Today, backtracked a little bit as expected to something a bit more moderate. Still, pressure is rising to our northeast. It's just not in the same sort of vein as we saw yesterday. So do remember, if you enjoy my video, still like and subscribe. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see the northeasterly wind streaming in off the North Sea at the moment. It's fairly cold out there at the moment. Temperatures dropping down close to freezing tonight, and they could be widely below freezing on Tuesday and even into Wednesday night as well. We've got showers, most of them will rain, but there are some wintry showers, especially further north. Again, the air is not quite cold enough for widespread wintriness, but it is still very chilly. You can see the overnight temperatures widely down towards freezing in the north, further southwards more low single digits, and it will likely drop below freezing as said in the next couple of evenings. Now, if you have a look at the latest UKV, you can see that northeasterly wind pushing in at the moment, looking pretty unsettled in a few spots, but most areas are reasonably dry and cold into Tuesday morning. Tuesday looks like a pretty crisp day, lots of sunshine, dry and cold, and you can see into the evening another frost could be fairly widespread. As we head into Wednesday afternoon, that rain is pushing in, but it takes very slow progress and it kind of disintegrates away. And you can see into Wednesday night, we could see another frost in the far east before cloud and rain starts to get dragged in there as we head towards Thursday morning. And then you can see just an onslaught of rain as we head into Thursday. Doesn't look too heavy or too widespread, but it is going to be on and off for a pretty persistent period of time. And then you can see as we head into Friday, lots of showers pushing in from the west. And then look at this, even into Saturday, we could see a more distinct area of low pressure looking really quite lively and perhaps even pretty stormy there. Now, this is a very localised, small but intense area of low pressure, and at this time frame, even at 5 days, it is very difficult to forecast. I wouldn't take this too literally, but it just shows you what could occur as we see big, deep low pressure systems to our north and our west. It does mean that spawning these smaller, severe, compact lows could definitely become more of a common theme late November into early December. There'll be some very strong gusty winds associated with this. A bit of snow on the northern edge as ever this time of year. A bit of evaporated cooling can cause some temporary snow. Just generally a really stormy picture here. Do look at the temperatures overnight tonight, widely down towards the low single digits, frosts in the north and the west. Into Tuesday afternoon, temperatures are pretty cold, only kind of 3 to 7 degrees, and into the early hours of Wednesday, widely down towards freezing, down towards -1 to maybe -3 there into the early hours. Into the afternoon, not getting much above, once again, kind of 4 to 7 degrees in most areas, 10 or 12 across the Republic of Ireland. Into the early hours of Thursday, we could see another frost maybe in the far east for a time in the evening, but quickly temperatures will rise into the afternoon. Look at that, 14 degrees in some spots, widely into the double digits for Thursday. The same for Friday, but slightly colder air does push back in. Could see some isolated frosts further northwards, and then some slightly milder air within that more severe low there into Saturday. So you can see up and down with the upper air temperatures, generally around average, but you can see some days are much colder, some days are much milder, a typical kind of zonal sine wave as we head into the winter months, where we've got lots of cold sectors, lots of mild sectors, maybe some wintriness in the north, but generally speaking, it's just going to be a lot of rain, a lot of wind, and a lot of up and down temperatures. Now, if you have a look at the latest GFS, you can see that low clearing away, high pressure ridging in for a time. That gives us our frosts over the next few evenings. And then we can see the relentless lows arrive from the west. And look at that, some really severe low pressure systems coming in off the Atlantic for early December. Looks really unsettled. No massive direct hits. You can see the northern or the centre of the lows stay to our north. So it could be stormy, but perhaps not as severe as if these lows were further southwards. But you can see it stays unsettled all the way to 384 hours. But you can see out at this point, we start to see the breakup of the tropospheric polar vortex towards this side of the pole. Not completely, it's still westerly based. The jet stream, though, sinks to our south, pressure rises to our north, and this could evolve into something much colder and more blocked into the middle third of the month. But this is really only heading towards that trajectory. It's not really there and probably wouldn't be there for a number of days after this. But what we do see at the end of this run is the breakup of all those big dark blues and purples which dominate late November and early December, slowly dissipating away, something perhaps a little bit more blocked there by the end of the run. It looks pretty chilly as well. Again, as I said earlier, we're going to see lots of oscillating air masses, milder and colder sectors, lots of greens, lots of yellows. Towards the end of the run, quite a lot of chilly air moving in with a southerly jet stream. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what that does entail. But yeah, definitely looking pretty chilly at times and very unsettled, if not stormy. Now, the GM is pretty similar. We got the low pressure systems coming in off the Atlantic over the next few days, looking really unsettled. Lots of blues and purples to our north for late November, early December. Really powering up the jet stream. We don't see as much of a big, powerful low heading across the Atlantic with all those purples, and that's because pressure rises to our north quite a lot faster than the GFS did. Now, it doesn't produce easterly winds or northerly winds or anything, but what it does do is halts these low pressure systems, so they don't really push massively in off the Atlantic. And you just see this lobe of green and yellow extending towards Svalbard, this ridge of higher pressure. And if we put on the upper level winds, you see the winds are heading southwards, heading northwards, typical split in the jet stream that starts to occur when we do see blocking patterns. Now, it's not a complete split, only a small extent of the jet stream heads northwards, but the fact that a little bit is just shows you that there is something at play to our north. Similar to the GFS, though, it's by no means a done deal, and by no means is it going to impact us in the next 10 days, but it just shows you that still longer range out towards the middle portion of the month, at the very latest, we are looking at blocking patterns becoming more abundant. As I said, it doesn't mean we're going to be definitely very cold or going to see something like the GFS produced yesterday, which was very progressive and quick in producing something cold, but it just means that it's unlikely to be very stormy like this. There's a chance it could continue. That would be a little bit against the odds given the other background signals. It'd be one of these scenarios where one background signal dominates and beats all the rest, which would be unlikely, but given that it's a westerly theme, I wouldn't put it against the weather for doing that. But generally speaking, we are expecting those blocking patterns to arrive in the middle third of the month, and you can again see some hints here. We finish by looking at the ECMWF. Again, lots of low pressure coming off the Atlantic, lots of blues and purples looking pretty relentless. Similar to the GM, a bit of higher pressure building up towards Svalbard, but it's nowhere near as strong, not really containing those lows too much. And you can see it is a bit of a relentless low pressure push there all the way to the end of the run. And eventually the jet stream actually does start to shift northwards. There is a bit of a ridge of high pressure coming into the Atlantic, which could settle things down a little bit a few days beyond this, but at this stage, very similar to the other runs, it is hinting at a change, but not really doing much. If we look at the northern hemisphere, you can see there is lots of higher pressure that's starting to ridge across the Arctic, but our issue is how succinct this big lobe of tropospheric polar vortex is. It essentially keeps the jet stream as a fast ribbon across the North Atlantic. And you can see that from the 200 HPA winds here, just a fast ribbon. A little bit of a kink there as we start to potentially see a break, but at this stage, still looking pretty relentless there. At least for the first week of December, probably the first 10 days. Change though expected after that. And if you look at the latest ensembles, as I said, it's not going to be massively mild. It is westerly flow, so it is going to be fairly mild at times. But because there's lots of low pressure involved coming out of Greenland and northern Canada. There's a lot of cold air involved as well, and because it's covering a long sea track, it's not going to be that cold when it arrives on our shores, but it's going to be chilly, and that's why we see lots of up and down with the upper air temperatures here. Lots of precipitation with strong weather fronts, and chopping and changing temperatures for the next few weeks. Looking pretty relentless zonal pattern, sort of cold zonality. It's not very cold zonality that we can see if we saw a direct northwesterly from Greenland, but a chilly zonality at times as we do head into early December. If we finally compare to the ECMWF, it's broadly very similar. Lots of these dips. Then we start to see a little peak, a little trough, a little peak, a little trough. And we're expecting more of those further into December. Again, we'll have to wait and see what's in store from around the 10th onwards. That's when I suspect this pattern could break. And I mean could, not will break, because we can't make any guarantees. But that's the point at which this big westerly momentum it does look like it will ease, and that would be the opportunity for the other drivers to take over. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what is in store, but yes, looking unsettled, westerly based over the next week or two. Pretty chilly at times, but equally there'll be some milder days, but it will be a very up and down, lots of chopping and changing to come. So make sure you have hats and gloves out for some days, big raincoats out for other days, and maybe other days, if we're out there in a bit of sunshine, it might even be t-shirt weather with maybe a couple of days around the mid-teens. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Glad you're new. And I'll see you again for another video soon.